Alright, you knew I was gonna say something here. Female protagonist, that is a bad sign. You already know there's gonna be all sorts of...
Synthetic Man has recently done a breakdown of Amazon's Fallout, and according to him, it's going to be the worst show ever, essentially, right? Honestly, I don't disagree. I don't have high hopes for this show, but Synthetic Man's reasons for why the show was going to be awful were so bad, okay? His reasons were terrible, so I'm not here to talk about why the show is going to be good or to defend the show in any way. So I'm kind of just here to play devil's advocate and talk about why his reasons for why the show is going to suck are terrible. They're just awful. They make no sense. So without further ado, let's just get into the video.
Talked about multiple times in the past, I used to be a huge Fallout fan. Then Fallout 4 crushed any and all dreams I had, not just for Bethesda games, but for the future of the gaming industry. That might sound like hyperbole, but at the time, I was pretty devastated at how shallow and soulless it was.
What do you mean that might be a bit of hyperbole? Like, everything is hyperbolic with you, everything is extremes. This one thing wasn't really up to my expectations, so it ruined the entire gaming industry for me. Don't get me wrong, I am very much so a Fallout fan, and not the type you think, because throughout this video he talks about like the Zoomer Bethesda fans who only played Fallout 4. Bitch, my first game was New Vegas, my second game was Fallout 2, my third game was Fallout 1, okay? Actually, other way around, Fallout 1 then Fallout 2, doesn't matter. I played Fallout 4 after 1, 2, 3 and New Vegas, essentially. And guess what? I wasn't the biggest fan of Fallout 4 either, so I just want to get this out of the way before anyone tries to discredit me by saying, oh, you're just a Zoomer Bethesda fan. No. What does that even mean?
And although I grew up with Fallout 3 and loved it at the time, and honestly, I still think it's a pretty good game to this day, I think it's clear to anybody who is a fan of the original games or New Vegas that Bethesda never really understood Fallout. They never quite got the tone or the themes correctly. They overemphasized the retro 50s art style.
Yeah, so to be completely fair, I do agree with all these points. Bethesda never really understood as well as Black Isle Studios or Obsidian did what Fallout is at its core. They seem to think it's a post-apocalypse 50s themed like action game, I guess.
And it's Amazon of all companies making this show. And this is a friendly reminder that Amazon created Rings of Power, the worst Lord of the Rings adaptation of all time, to the point where it was just straight up fan fiction. You've likely seen a couple videos on it. Basically every content creator was covering it at the time.
Yeah, Rings of Power sucked, but that doesn't mean that everything Amazon touches automatically sucked. I'm not sure if you know this, but they also adapted The Boys and Invincible, and both those shows are really good. Even though they heavily changed The Boys from the source material, it's still incredible. I would say even better than the source material. And Invincible is really good too, although Season 2 has been getting some mixed reactions, but I don't know about that one, I haven't seen it. But yeah, just because a company makes a bad adaptation doesn't mean that everything else they make also automatically sucks. They've made good adaptations as well.
I know that I've lived a relatively comfortable life.
Stop! Lucy!
Alright, you knew I was gonna say something here. Female protagonist, that is a bad sign.
Yes, I knew you were gonna say something, which is why I paused the video. So, yeah, let me say this first. Women in Fallout have been very consistently present and played very major roles since the beginning. Like, President Tandy was a woman, one of the most important characters. A minor-ish character in the first game, very important character in the second game. Plenty of other female side characters and companions show up throughout the entire series, on top of the fact that you can always play as a woman since the beginning of the series. Not only that, but in the first game there were 3 pre-created like main characters, one of which was a woman, which it means that technically, canonically, one of the main characters of the first game is a woman. So yes, the main character of the Fallout show being a woman is not out of place at all.
You already know there's going to be all sorts of corporate bootlickers and apologists saying, you could always create a female character. What's the problem with the TV show picking one?
Yeah, guys, I'm just an apologist and corporate bootlicker. That's why my argument is invalid, even though it makes a lot of sense. And it's not just that you could always play as a woman, it's the fact that female characters throughout all the Fallout games have played very, very, very important roles. And it's not even about the main character. If the main character of this show had been a man, right, but an important side character in the show had been a woman, this guy would have still fucking complained about the fact that there was an important woman and would have called her like, oh, she's a Mary Sue girl boss, whatever the fuck, right?
Or even worse, people pretending that a female character written in the modern times is going to be anything other than a girl boss with toxic masculinity traits. Not until the pendulum swings back are we ever going to see a female character actually act like your average woman. Why? Because being feminine is sexist, apparently. Liking girly things, acting girly, all just a social construct. There's no difference between the two biological sexes, etc., etc.
Yeah, so obviously this is bullshit. There are plenty of shows, modern shows, with well-written female characters that act like women, act feminine, like female things, but are still strong, still project strength without being annoying assholes. Take House of the Dragon, for example. Every single female character, well, every single character, but every single, like, main female character is a woman who very much so acts like a woman, acts feminine, but still projects power, and is still a good, well-written character. I'm sure that if Synthetic Man fans see this video, they're gonna tell me that that's a bad example, because House of the Dragon sucks and is woke because female protagonist and Corlys Velaryon is black. Which, yeah, that was kind of dumb for them to make Corlys Velaryon black, but besides that, the show is very good, and I stand by what I said. Every single major female character in that show is a strong woman that still acts like a woman and isn't an asshole.
Honestly, you don't even have to get overly political with this. All you have to do is have the ability to recognize patterns, to know that if the vast majority of female characters were written like men in modern movies and TV shows, this one is going to be no different.
What the fuck are you talking about? The problem with like Mary Sue characters like Cora, for example, isn't that they're acting like men. It's because they're acting annoying. Like, they're annoying assholes who are cunts to everybody constantly, but like, yet still people still love them, and they can do no wrong, and they're perfect, apparently. That is the problem with these Mary Sue characters that you hate. It's not that they act like men. Are you dumb? You think men act like that? If a man acted like Cora did, I would still fucking hate him, because he's still an asshole, right? It doesn't change anything. This guy doesn't even understand why the characters are hated. He thinks that they're hated because they act like men. Men don't act like that, and if they do, they're cunts. No one likes them.
Now, immediately, I already have a problem again. Now, this is something that some of you guys might not know, but this show actually takes place after Fallout 4 on the West Coast, no less. Are you starting to see the problem yet? If not, let me explain.
Oh, so quickly, before he explains, let me just tell you right now that Synthetic Man is very bad at Fallout lore, and he doesn't really know that much. He pretends like everything he says in this video is true to the lore. It's not, and this is coming from someone who is a really big fan of Fallout, and I actually know the lore, so I'm going to be correcting him a lot.
So, a major plot point in Fallout New Vegas is that the NCR has basically become an established country at this point. They've become a mini United States. This takes place well over 200 years after the apocalypse, and it has already been established that the NCR rebuilt civilization to a degree.
To a degree is very important to remember here. Because yes, 200 plus years is enough time to, I guess, rebuild civilization to indeed a degree, but it's not enough time to, rebuild entire cities and get rid of radiation Also because you can't really get rid of radiation from an atomic bomb.
One of the major arguments in favor of letting the NCR rule the Mojave and New Vegas is that they have created peace on their borders. They are literally the good guy faction of that game.
So this just isn't true. The NCR doesn't have peace on its borders. It's constantly at war with several different factions because the NCR has a tendency to just walk into towns and say, this town is ours now, and if you resist, we'll kill you. Which people don't like. If you talk to most of the NPCs in the Mojave, they don't like the NCR, and several factions have quests that have you working against the NCR. And they don't just hate the NCR for no reason. They hate the NCR because like they took their food or took their houses and shit like that. Like it almost seems like you, Synthetic Man, don't understand the game.
Within the new California Republic, it's supposed to be relatively peaceful. Now, we never directly see how peaceful it is, of course.
No, in New Vegas, we don't see the heartland of the NCR. We do in Fallout 2, but, you know, they're a smaller faction, so I don't really count that. But in New Vegas, we do hear a lot about the inner workings of the NCR. And Rose Cassidy and her side quest, we hear that Legion territory is incredibly fucking safe, right? For travelers and merchants, while NCR territory for travelers and merchants is incredibly dangerous because there are lots of raiders the NCR just doesn't do or can't do anything about because they're stretched far too thin.
But just take a look at this next shot.
You need to go home. Vault dwellers are an endangered species. I do not think you would be willing to do what it takes to survive up here.
That one didn't age quite so well.
That's clearly LA, right? AKA the Boneyard in the Fallout universe. Well, by this time, it is an established state in the NCR. Just reading this straight off of the wiki. By 2189, the Boneyard became one of the states of the new California Republic. As one of the largest cities in NCR territory, it was a natural choice for many organizations to place their headquarters. Thus, by 2281, the Boneyard is host to the Republic Reserve and the followers Angels Boneyard Medical University, among many others. As the NCR now has control over the Boneyard, it has become much more stable, with the buildings rebuilt, redecorated, and renovated. Now let's take a second look at that shot again. Does this look like one of the largest cities in the new California Republic?
This one is super easy to like explain. So LA, right, is indeed in the Fallout universe, the Boneyard, and is a very important city in the NCR. However, obviously they can't rebuild the entire city. The NCR doesn't have the manpower or the equipment to rebuild a city as large as LA. Obviously a significant portion or significant part of the city will be populated and will have, you know, rebuilt buildings, but that can't be true for the entire city. It also literally physically can't be true because nuclear bombs hit LA and radiation exists, my guy. You can't get rid of that. You can't fill up these giant craters left by the nukes. It wouldn't make sense for a city as gigantic as LA to be completely rebuilt and repopulated only 200 years after a nuclear world war. So yeah, even though it is true that the Boneyard, part of it is rebuilt with people living there, that hardly goes for the entire city. That's literally not possible. There aren't enough people to even repopulate the entire city.
Yeah, like I said, Bethesda doesn't understand Fallout.
Mate, it seems like you don't understand Fallout or just basic, like, reasonable logic. Like, how can you think that within 200 years you can completely rebuild a city that has been nuked multiple times?
Honestly, I would say the vast majority of Fallout fans don't understand Fallout because I'd say most of the current fans are Zoomers who have never played anything other than Fallout 3 or 4.
Yeah, so I've played all the Fallout games. The only one I've played multiple times is New Vegas. So yeah, that's my opinion now. Way more. I played all the Fallout games and I didn't really like Fallout 4. Therefore, my opinion is, I guess, more valid. I'm not sure. Synthetic Man, if you haven't played Fallout 1, 2, 3, and New Vegas like I have, my opinion is more valid than you because I played more of the games. I guess that's how this works.
If you have played New Vegas, you know this is not what it's supposed to be. It's well over 200 years.
My guy keeps pretending like 200 years is like an incredibly long time, and basically all of the effects of the nuclear fallout should be gone. It's not. Obviously, it's enough time for civilization to rebuild in some way, and Shady Sands, for example, which is the capital of the NCR, is a new city built from the ground up. But it hasn't been enough time to completely rebuild, like destroyed cities like LA. If you played the oldest games, you would know this. Most of the big areas in Fallout 1 and 2 are either completely new cities that came to be after the war, or parts of older cities, but people were like living in the parts that weren't destroyed by nukes. Obviously, New Vegas is different because Vegas wasn't nuked, okay? Mr. House saved New Vegas. Most of the area was unaffected by nuclear warfare, which is why there are more settlements and old cities, you know, still standing.
And yet it still looks like the bombs just fucking dropped. Why? Because Bethesda knows post-apocalypses are much more marketable and understandable to the lowest common denominator player than a world that is rebuilding long after the apocalypse.
So while I do agree with that sentiment, we still don't know if they are just going to pretend like none of the games happened and the entirety of California is a wasteland. Because again, this is just a teaser and we've barely seen anything. And your biggest complaint up until this point about it looking like a wasteland is that not all of LA has been rebuilt, which lore-wise and logic-wise makes sense.
Still don't believe me? Just listen to this line in the trailer.
If you insist on staying, then you will have to adapt.
They're clearly still trying to sell this as untamed wilderness.
I mean, again, it's a teaser, so we don't know where she is. And on top of that, like I said earlier, the NCR territory, while being safer, I guess, than just normal, you know, not state-controlled territory, isn't very safe. Especially not outside of the settlements. Also, I want to revisit the part where he said, like, oh, this main character, this female main character, is just gonna be another girl boss. Mary Sue, like, dude, she looks uncomfortable and nervous in every frame we see her. There's literally no evidence that she's going to be another, like, Mary Sue girl boss character.
And now we have a whole nother problem that even more casual fans of the series would agree. Why the hell is the Brotherhood of Steel so big here? The new California Republic whooped their asses.
Now, usually I would agree with this. The Brotherhood is a dying faction, and them being everywhere and in every Fallout game doesn't make sense, especially on the East Coast. However, this is on the West Coast, and at the time in which this series takes place, the Brotherhood of Steel West Coast chapter is still at war with the NCR and actually has begun recruiting Wastelanders, which is something they've never done before, in order to win the war. They are definitely not going to win the war, but they still exist on the West Coast and are at war with the NCR, so it does make sense them being there.
Now, do I necessarily agree with that creative choice? No, because I love the Brotherhood of Steel because power armor is cool, which is obviously why they're here. But guys, this takes place in California after the events of New Vegas. The Brotherhood of Steel shouldn't even fucking exist in California at this point.
Yeah, but Synthetic Man, according to the story, to the lore of the game, the Brotherhood of Steel is still active in California and fighting a war against the NCR. Like, if you knew what you're talking about, you would know this. Also, you do realize that the NCR does not control all of California. They control most of it, but part of it is controlled by the Empire of Sheep, part by the Brotherhood of Steel, and part by super mutants, and like 90% by the NCR. Also, the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel has nothing to do with the California chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. If the Mojave chapter dies, that doesn't mean the California chapter also automatically die. And we don't know the canon ending to New Vegas, so it very well could be that the Brotherhood of Steel survived the events of that game, because that's something you can do in the game. Anyway, boys, I could just repeat myself for the rest of this video, because he just goes on, like, not knowing the Fallout lore. He does say some things that I agree with, like there shouldn't be another fucking giant, I don't know what they're called, because I don't care, the fucking Brotherhood Zeppelin base, they're stupid. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video here because this video is way too fucking long already, and I don't feel like just keep saying like, oh, the lore. You could Google all this shit, man. You should know this if you were a real Fallout fan. So anyway, boys, this is the end of the video. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. What did we learn today? We learned that Fallout show bad because of women, and it doesn't respect the lore, even though Synthetic Man doesn't know the lore. So yeah, goodbye.